So now, the moment we've all been waiting for, and I really, 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 really want to thank all of you for being patient and being with us. But I am introducing you to our extraordinary showcase of talented artists, three Latinx non binary performers, Daniel de Jesus, Rene Gaust, and Stefa. These artists are multidimensional in their approach to their work as composers and songwriters, exploring themes around indigenous tradition, feminism, and what it means to be Latinx in the 21st century. So Rene Gauss uses folk music traditions of Latin America in their work. Vocally, they embody singers of Mexican folk music while mixing in their own flavor. Rene's music presents themes of love and justice from the perspective of a non-binary feminist. Stefa is an artist whose work tries to embrace the music of their indigenous past and deconstructs the Euro-centered musical training that they were brought up with in their youth. Their voice is like a siren. I'd say like even more than a siren, if anything. Luring, shocking, powerful. Stefa's vocals prowess in the instrument and the writer of their musical journey seeking to connect or make a connection to new identities. So thank you. And Daniel de Jesus uses mysticism and goth aesthetics, gothic, to translate their themes into their music. Their vocal agility, coupled by cello, weaves a sonic tapestry that depicts the visualization of historical figures and occult transfigurations. Getting deep there. The fragile and aggressive nature of their voice carves a space for their desires to be multifaceted as a singer. So, thank you all for being here. I know we're all in different parts of the world right now, but I really appreciate you taking the time to watch at least the other parts of the program because we're running a little bit delayed. But I really appreciate you being here. And I just wanted to touch base really quickly before we get into the concert, just to provide some context of the work that you do and your practice. So if we can just briefly talk about like maybe less than 5 minutes about your work, starting with Stefa, then Daniel, and then Rene, and then we'll go off into the concert.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Um, Thank you, Richard, for that lovely intro. And thanks to everyone who's been part of this event today, and everyone who's watching. In terms of my practice and my work, I feel like it's directly tied to so much unraveling that has been happening, not only my entire life, but really, I'd say in the last 6 years, since deciding I was going to start writing my own music and creating my own work. And that happened around 2014 with the Ferguson uprising.
Mm-hmm.
That was a time where me and my, very newly cultivated queer community, we were really questioning ourselves as artists and as organizers. Where is our attention? Where is our focus with our work? What are we talking about? What are we using up our space to say? And that took, it took a lot of undoing and a lot of relearning, and coming from a classical music background, and I say specifically Eurocentric because that is what I was taught as a child. Singing, I say dead white men music, which in its own right is incredible and mind-blowing, but there was never a focus in my life, of really learning indigenous music in schools, or really centering that deeply on music from my culture. And so, at like 24, 25, I was like, okay, I need to start literally just putting down whatever I want and not censoring myself, not trying to be like, oh, I need to, write 3.5-minute songs, or they need to be about, romantic relationships all the time, or, and I just really wanted to kind of push myself to speak on what I'm really thinking and going through as a person, and as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think people will definitely see that too. I think when I first started seeing you perform, I felt like I was transported into this like other world, right? But also like knowing the histories of like Latinx indigenous traditions, being like, oh, that's going deep. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I feel like, oh, sure. Yes, of course.
Do you want no? You want to finish
Oh
that?
no, just in that sense, like I feel like so many of us as queer people and as brown people and as coming from migrant families or whatever our experiences, I feel like we're constantly being othered. And so in a way to like create our own genres and create our own identities and to really divest from a lot of labels, I have a very like intense relationship with Latinx, and I think it's really important in my work, I think, to embrace that otherness as well and like
Mm.
make whatever I want. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So Daniel, talk to us a little bit about your process, because I know we've worked on a couple of things together, and just curious to hear a little bit more, because there was something that I think ties the two, what Stefa mentioned and what some of the conversations you also had about like playing dead white men's music, and
Yes.
how you've changed that into making something completely unique and completely fresh and new. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. This is such a great pleasure to be part of this programming. And I know that we originally had thought of doing this live thing, but I think this is really a phenomenal chance to like speak about our work as Latinx performers and as non-binary people. My similar to Stefa, my work, my education stems from classical music as a cellist, as a violinist, string player, learning about composition. It's my favorite composers were like Shostakovich, Brahms, Elgar, Bach. All those people were a big part of that. But I think that in my education and being someone who was looking for my someone that looked like myself. I never saw that in 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 the history books or in any of the content that was being introduced to me through school, and so I just took it upon myself to get that education, and that's what led me to really think a lot about the phenomenon of Latinidad, and also to really think about what does it mean to be Latin American, and what is like where do I fit into all of this. And I think what really brought me there was just looking at a lot of visual art and looking at a lot of work by like what happened during the colonial era of the Americas, and really trying to tap into those histories. So a lot of my work is inspired by historical research, and I made an album about the phenomenon of the Virgin and the practice of the occult of the Virgin. I made an album about the worship of Saint Teresa of Avila from Spain. I also made music about just looking at like other smaller histories, and so it's just sort of like being kind of like a historian, semi-biographer, but through music. And I've been doing that now more with queer history and exploring queer histories, and currently working on writing music for a choir right now that explores queer history in Philadelphia, where I live.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm looking forward to the later albums. You also do like the Music Mondays, right? Like, do you do like a
Well,
new Music Mondays these days?
yeah, well, I'm putting out several new projects, and for the month of June, I've been putting out music, acoustic renderings of my songs on Bandcamp, and the whole collection will be out July 6th, along with a covers record on the same day, and then hopefully by September, all new music will be out. So it's 2020's has been a year of just making, and so it's just been part of the stay-at-home order for me was just, a time to make stuff.
Okay. And we can follow you at Daniel.
Oh, you can follow me at De Jesus Cello. That's my handle usually, De Jesus Cello. on Instagram and Facebook, and my website is Cello Eye, because Daniel de Jesus is very expensive as a .com, and I don't have the cash to buy that yet. So we'll see.
Well, there you go. For those of you that are out there, please consider supporting, so that way, you know, we can get a DanielDeJesus.com website. So last but not least is Rene Gauss, who is currently in Mexico, and would love to hear a little bit about your work. The last time that we saw each other, we bonded over these very flashy jackets that we were wearing at the Celebrate Mexico quinceañera. So I felt a deep connection to you. Then I saw you perform that same night and was just like, wow, this is an amazing vocal presence. So please talk to us about your work, where that's coming from, and where it's going.
You know, Richard, the first thing I want to say is I have a video of that night, and it is so much fun when the mariachi walked in, and I had like 10 mezcals, and I just started singing. I was like, and I was supposed to sing in the festival like 3 days later. I was like, I hope Claudia Norma is still going to have me on the festival after tonight, because it was a wild party. But I do remember our flashy jackets, and I loved it. Well, my name is Rene Ghost, as you said. I'm currently in Mexico, actually in my hometown where I was raised, which is a border town. And I think that my border town identity has really, I have always felt like I've lived in the line between like more than one world and or identity. You know, I was born in the States, but I was raised between Mexico and the States in a town that's called Nogales on both sides. It's Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Mexico. Nogales, Sonora is the name of the state. And so that always made me feel a very particular way. You know, I'm always like kind of a little, they would call me gringa, right, in Mexico, but I'm also always like the Mexican friend in the States, you know, somebody's Mexican friend. And so even though that's a very sort of like binary, or I guess my life has been lived through a lot of dichotomy. But, you know, recently I have begun to explore my gender identity as genderqueer and non-binary, and that's really informed my art as well. I wish to, or I have begun actually, to transgress in Mexican music genres that have traditionally been very aggressive and violent towards, you know, our LGBT community, as well as queer, non-binary, you know, women. And I hate to use the word minorities, but I just guess like people who have been historically living under violence and continue to do so. And so I have always felt like the music from my country is very beautiful, but unfortunately the lyrics on this music is very, very violent. And we have a lot of examples of these genres just kind of going to waste, in my opinion, and being used for those means of being violent and homophobic and transphobic, etc. So I have taken it upon myself to sort of write new lyrics and write a new songbook, is what I'm calling it. Hopefully this will be a project that will be going on for many years for me, so that eventually I can say, you know, these are the 30 rancheras, or, you know, the 10 huapangos that I wrote in Mexican music tradition that really represent queer voices and represent women identifying folks and represent us in all of our diversity. Because, and you know, it's really interesting because the conversation is so different for me still every time I'm in Mexico versus when I'm in New York. You know, my current partner lives in Mexico City, so I spent a good amount of time there. And for example, I feel like in the States, we're still trying to reclaim that concept of like Latinidad and that union between us. Whereas in Mexico, in decolonial feminism, there's talks of the word Latinidad being used as a very colonizing and sort of trying to bundle us all into one same bag. And so that to me really informs the bag of the conquered, right, by the Spaniards. And so I'm constantly going back and forth between like my identity and how the intersectionality, I suppose, of my identity, and that inevitably bleeds into my music. I recently had the honor of winning the New York Foundation of the Arts Women's Fund grant, and I'll be releasing an album called Resistor next year just sort of letting you know of new projects that I'll be working on. And this project is specifically will be aimed at the queer community and as women identifying folks. And so that's sort of what my work is. And I just want to say the first piece we're going to hear by me today is a traditional Mexican folk tune, but I took out all of like the pronouns that indicated like the binary, and I turned them into gender neutral. So that's sort of another thing that I'm doing with like traditional folk music in Mexico.
Wow, that's great. And I like Daniel mentioned, we originally conceived this to be taking place at the center in one of the large auditoriums, but I'm very, very, very thankful that we're able to still explore a part of this now. So I'm looking forward to all of the upcoming projects you all have, but I don't want to talk anymore because I want people to enjoy the music. So thank you all for being here. For those of you that are listening right now, get your cocktail, mocktail, beverage, put your sound bars on, speakers on, throw the screen onto your smart TV, and really enjoy this because they visually put together a beautiful concert and sounds going to be really great. So thank you all once again, and hope you're well.
Thank you for having
Ciao.
us.
De nada.
Pajarillo jilguero, presta tus alas. Pajarillo jilguero, presta tus alas, presta tus alas. Pajarillo jilguero, presta tus alas, presta tus alas. Llévamele un recuerdo, llévamele un recuerdo, allá mi adorada, allá mi adorada. Padres que tienen hijos y les maltratan y les maltratan. Padres que tienen hijos y les maltratan y les maltratan. Yo que les quiero mucho, yo que les quiero tanto, Dios me las quita, Dios me les mata. Pájaro que abandona su primer nido, su primer nido. Pájaro que abandona su primer nido, su primer nido. Si lo encuentra ocupado, si lo encuentra ocupado, su merecido, su merecido. Ay, pajarillo jilguero, presta tus alas, presta tus alas. Pajarillo jilguero, presta tus alas, presta tus alas. Llévamele un recuerdo, llévamele un recuerdo, allá mi adorada, a mi adorada. Toda la furia metropolitana consumiendo lentamente, sin dudar. ¿Qué dirán mis ojos de ti? ¿Qué dirán tus besos de mí? ¿Qué consejo crees que dan los muertos cubiertos en tierra sobre el que dirán mis ojos de ti? ¿Qué dirán tus besos de mí? ¿Qué diría el que dirán si todas las lenguas veneno supieran amar?
I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. Oh, I'm not sure of where to go. I'm not sure of where to go. not sure where to go. Oh, I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure where to go. Oh.
Madre tierra, madre mía, el agradecido, respirando contigo oración. Entonces, reunidos bajo la luz de la luna llena, nos preparamos cambiadamente para la ceremonia. Estoy escuchando, la paloma canta en el viento. La piedra visionaria desde la montaña oscura invoca el espíritu de un guerrero. Reunidos bajo la luz de la luna llena, nos preparamos cambiadamente para la ceremonia. Encarnando el poder de lo masculino, yo encarnando el poder de lo femenino, yo encarnando el poder de lo masculino, yo encarnando el poder de lo femenino. Amar a una mujer ser tormenta al mar, naufragar en sus labios, desaparecer. Orbitar su piel, extraviar su luz me guiará por el puente de regreso a su nido de brazos. Yo revivo para amar.